Here's a question that came in. I'm not sure what the source of this was. And here's how it goes. Will you fight not to raise, the word is not to raise the retirement age? I don't think the question is referring to Social Security and or some other retirement, but and then will you fight to keep government out of our retirement money? Well, we don't like that. Is there a specific about the retirement age? Or maybe I'll state it this way. Do you think we may have to raise the retirement age for Social Security to meet the, I'll call it the liability that's out there for us pensioners?
You know, when you look at Social Security, you've got X number of dollars going out, and you've got X number of dollars going in. You know, and so you're going to have to take a look at the entire Social Security program, and this is why I talked about it before. You know, I don't know what the retirement age should be. I really don't. But I'm very anxious to get in there and really begin to study this thing out, because our seniors who have lived their lives and have planned their lives based on a promise of the American people, that promise needs to be kept. That promise needs to be kept. But on the same hand, we have to make sure that we liberate our grandchildren. We're upside down in the Social Security mechanism simply because there aren't enough workers that are replacing an aging workforce. And people don't really want to talk about it because we have to find ways to protect both. And there are solutions out there, and it's going to require some tough decisions to be made. And I'm anxious to get to work on it and see what can be done. I don't know what the right age is. I don't know what the right benefit levels are. I don't know what the right tax is. But I can tell you that we can do math, and we know that we have less money coming in than is going out, and that's a problem. So one thing we can do, though, in helping to fix it is what I alluded to much earlier in this whole day, is raise up taxpayers. With 15.2 million Americans out of work, another 16 million Americans underemployed. If you can begin to fix the economy and correct the mistakes that have been made in the last 3 or 4 years on economic development in this country, you will put those workers back to work. And when those workers go back to work, they become taxpayers and they become contributors to the system. And that is a significant linchpin to correcting this problem. Karen?
I've made a commitment not to raise the eligibility age for Social Security. And the reason why I feel so confident in that is because there is plenty of waste, fraud, and abuse to make cuts elsewhere. If we're just looking at Social Security and Medicare as its own isolated entity, I would agree that we're going to have to make sure that it's run in a fiscally responsible way, that receipts and deficits need to match up, and we need to have a balanced budget. But the fact of the matter is that politicians have been rating Social Security and rating social benefits for a long time because senior citizens don't have lobbyists to apply the same pressure that unfortunately groups that shouldn't be giving handouts and tax credits do. I'm not saying that economic development and jobs can't run with tax credits, because if constitutionally you believe your income is your private property, you look at things very differently. It's the reason why I wrote the 100% combat disabled property tax rebate for 100% combat disabled veterans. I believe your property taxes is your property. Now, there was a reason why Paul Ryan wrote the roadmap with some tax revisions and changes, and then looked at eligibility. That was on his ledger. On my ledger is to reduce the fraud and abuse. The 6 years that I self-term limited, I went in when they said that the budget was in such a disarray and collapse that there was zero money. I thought, great, just go in there and cut. Use competitive bids, use transparency, outlaw no-bid contracts, and we'll clean it up. It worked. We've got to do the same thing in Washington. You'd be surprised how many no-bid contracts are supplied for favors for votes. We can compete. We're Americans. We're innovators. We can produce as long as we have a level playing field, so that one group isn't favored above the other, and we can go in and produce the best products. Now, in terms of the tax code, I mentioned the flat tax before. If we had a flat tax similar to Forbes' proposal back maybe 6 years ago or more, we would be able to generate enough revenues, and people would keep more of their income. There wouldn't be the loopholes, and there wouldn't be the shenanigans, and we'd probably be able to cut half of the IRS. Are there any accountants that make a lot of money on income taxes and so on in the room? Because I would just recommend that you go to business taxes, because you'll still be making money, because businesses will flourish, because we'll have more money in our pockets. Ronald Reagan and John F. Kennedy had it right. The less taxes we take from you, the more you have in your pocket to invest and to come up with innovative new businesses and invest in your own opportunities. And I still believe that the engine of growth in this country is all of you. It's not the government telling you what to do. As a matter of fact, one of those two former presidents seemed to have been pretty adamant about saying, stop asking for what you want out of government. What can you do for the people around you? We're going to move back to those American principles in 2011 because we have to. And I think if we all appeal to our brighter angels, we know that they're there. We've been here before. We can turn it around as we always do. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. Just about done with the questions now. Here's one that came through, and I'm not going to spend too much time on this, but maybe just a brief answer. Today's statistics state that there are more governmental workers than manufacturing workers. And it says, what specifically would you do to shrink government and get the salaries more in line with other American workers? That could be the subject of an all-day seminar, as you're well aware. Just give me a minute on that, if you would.
Yeah, I think the statistic you're speaking of is in the state of Wisconsin. This came out a little bit earlier in the year that in Wisconsin we have more government employees than we have manufacturing jobs. For the first time ever, there's a little over 400,000 manufacturing jobs in Wisconsin, about 470,000 government employees in Wisconsin. We're asking our government to do more than we're willing to pay for, and therefore we have to make government smaller. And again, it goes back to a comment I made earlier. You have to begin to look at and address areas of duplication of services and begin to weed out those areas of duplication. You would never function this way in any business climate where you have 6 or 7 people doing exactly the same thing when you only had the pay or cash coming in for one of those people. And so you have to begin to look at areas of duplication from the entire system and start rooting out that duplication.
Thank you. Margaret Thatcher was pretty good at this. She walked into an economy in the United Kingdom that was pretty similar, where there were more people working on government checks than in the private sector. And as a conservative in her country, she decided to take a look, use the phone book test, the Yellow Pages test. If government was doing what private business could be doing, and it wasn't in their constitutional charter, it went to the private sector. We need to take a look at what the government's doing, and if private businesses can be doing it better, we need to empower them to do it. She put on seminars for a lot of government employees so that they learn how to incorporate, put their businesses together, and to launch their businesses instead of be government employees. I think when you look at salaries being double that of the private sector, and the private sector is expected to pay taxes in order to support the public sector, we've got the balance upset. It should be just the reverse. We need to make sure that private sector and small businesses, large businesses can flourish, and that government is our servant again and not our master. Thank you.
Thank you, Terry. We've been going at this for about an hour and a half now, and it's probably just about ran its course. We have another question there yet?
I got a real quick follow-up for you. We lock the border, we keep people coming in to do our work. That's great. but work is being done in China, Mexico, and now India. And if I go to any of the stores, I can't find anything that says made in the USA like it used to. So if we somehow would try and tax the product coming into the country, take that money and put it into stimulating jobs, and keep those products from being made in other countries, would that be beneficial to our economy?
I'll hold the podium and pass the mic. Here you go.
Okay. Two things. Money policy and trade policy need to be looked at. When we trade, we're trading at a lower position because our money doesn't have the value it once had. If you're in manufacturing right now, we're considered a low-cost country. Anybody in manufacturing in the room? No. Then you understand what I'm saying. We're negotiating at a disadvantage. We need to make sure that our money has value. That means reducing the deficit. We've got to stop spending. We've got to stop digging the hole deeper. And that's the government's job. We're rated #1 in the size of our economy, 300 times larger than the next largest economy. We're rated #1 in the worst deficit. That's the government's job to fix that and to stop going down that road. Secondly, trade negotiations. If we're importing Toyota or something from China, they need to take our product as well. We need to make sure Made in America has value and we have pride in American products. Now you're talking about a tariff used to stimulate the economy. I believe we can compete on an even playing field, but we've got to get our financial house in order by getting that money policy straight so we can compete. Then we need to make sure that the U.S. Senate is doing their job when they're agreeing on executive trade negotiation agreements, because their job is to be the check and balance for us. And this particular administration has to be put on notice that if we're buying Chinese, then Chinese had better be buying American.
Complicated question, but I think the bigger question is why do companies take jobs overseas, and why are they at a competitive advantage against us? I believe that the American workforce and the American worker can outproduce any worker. Our entrepreneurs can outcreate any entrepreneur anywhere in the world when empowered to do so. But we do have a regulatory and tax environment in this country that is anti-business, anti-entrepreneurial, and anti-growth. And those are the things that will address it so that more things are made here and made here more competitively. And there's where we need to get to. We now have our federal government going to be requiring everybody to use fluorescent light bulbs in this country. Not even made here. They can't make them here because of mercury in them. So what do? We import them from China and Korea. And then when they go bad, we get the waste anyway. This is a classic government boondoggle, and it costs jobs. And those are the types of things that will get to the root of it.
Well, after an hour and a half, we probably know people as well as we know some of our best friends and our family members. You know, you get to do that after you engage for a while. I was surprised not a question came up on Afghanistan. Not one question came up. And then let's do this. Let's wrap up. Bobby, let's do. Al, you got a quick question?
I haven't heard anything on how to make America energy independent.
Very good. Let's do that. We've got some time yet.
Good one. Good one.
Energy. Sorry.
Do you want us to sit or?
Yeah, you can say sitting.
Okay.
Some of